Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in to the Peace Podcast, Season 2, Episode 21. Just Heal My Inner Child, whatever that looks like. This is a special birthday episode. So I posted on my Instagram and my Facebook page a picture that I'm going to put up on the screen here. And that little girl on the left is me. And May 25th was my 42nd birthday. And I like to use that time to reflect a little bit. So if you're like me and you're a self-reflector and you start to think about all the things that you learned, all of the experiences that you've gone through, all the life lessons, and how you've healed certain pieces of you, birthdays are usually a really awesome time to do that, especially for me because you have the January word of the year and I check back in on that. But then my birthday is in May, so it's 5 months later. So it kind of gives me a natural check in there. And so one of the things that I really thought about this time was how there are certain pieces of me that, if I'm being honest, I probably hid in relationships that were not for me so that I didn't have to deal with the pieces of me that weren't healed. So if I had this relationship that I needed to focus on, or I had this problem in that relationship that was distracting me from myself, then I could focus on that. Then the problem was somebody else's to fix. It was somebody else's um, fault, and somebody else's ownership was needed there and not my own for myself. You know how they say it's easier to fix other people's problems than it is to fix your own? Well, this would have been one of those moments. So just hiding yourself inside of those relationships in an effort to bury yourself in something to not have to uncover the pieces of you that need healing. And so if you look at this picture, that girl on the left was very young, but throughout my childhood, there are certain things that I packed away in my backpack as part of my process and carried along with me. And I would say until year 41, going into 42, there were still remnants of those pieces. And so she felt like she needed to shrink her body and her personality in order to be accepted. She was who everyone needed her to be instead of being the version of her that was who she was created to be. And she was desperate for love. And um, in that desperation, took different definitions of love as actual love when they weren't. And that led to a need to be in control. And so when I look at that little girl, I don't just see her, I see the journey from her to the woman that's in front of this camera. And in this past year, I really see the shedding of layers of things that I continued to carry for all, I guess, 35 of those years. And so year 42 is here, and year 41 has taught me a lot about what are some main things that I needed to uncover and unearth, and what are some main lessons that I learned in that journey. So I thought, what better way to celebrate my birthday weekend than to be in this beautiful space with this beautiful view behind me, but also to be able to share with you those lessons that I've learned. Again, I share my experiences so that other people don't have to live in the bondage that I've lived in for as long as I lived in it, so that you can be in your 20s and in your teens and in your 30s and not have to continue to walk down the path of the bondage of whatever it is that's holding you there. And even if you're in your 50s and your 60s and you're still, experiencing that bondage, that you can look back and hear the stories of my testimony and of other testimonies that I've, witnessed, and understand that you don't have to be in that bondage anymore, that we weren't created to be in a space where we're being held to something, that we were created to live a purpose-filled life that's freeing and not constraining. And so what's the first thing that I learned? Be loud and take up space because you deserve to exist. There was a time where, and I think I might have told you guys the story about when I was in the nail salon and there was a lady that made fun of my laugh. And I was like, imagine making fun of somebody's way that they sound when they're experiencing joy. It's a very odd way to be. But when I think about, just the things that I've experienced in life, the spaces that I've been in life, and how many times I've laughed quieter, um, changed and shaped my personality to be molded to the space that I was in. Not wanted to take up too much space in that environment, going to the corner, going to the back of church, going to, the side, or even, going to the place where the food is at a party and just kind of planting myself there and not mingling and not navigating the room and just feeling like if there's less of me, if I'm just my physical body and I'm not embodying all the other pieces of me, then perhaps I can be in this space and not be noticed and not stand out and just kind of be a part of the ambiance of the space. And I think I've done that for a very long time. And if you're anything like me, these would be the people that you say are introvert extroverts because they can be on the camera and they can say all these things and do all these things, but when they get into an actual environment, they don't respond that same way to being in person. I think part of the reason is because when you're in your own space, you feel like you can take up as much space as you need to. But when you're in other people's spaces, it feels like you need to take up less space because of the fear of judgment, because of the fear of people's opinions, because of the fear of misrepresenting yourself as something that you're not, etc. So what I learned year 41 going into 42 is sometimes the spaces need you. And so sometimes the chemistry that's in that space needs whatever you have inside of your aura and inside of your characteristics, inside of who God has called you to be. Sometimes that space needs a you to change the trajectory of the space, of the conversation, of the argument, of the meeting, of whatever it is. And so to that, I say, take up the space because sometimes the space needs you. And then the other part is you deserve to draw breath and take up space. And this has taken me so long to learn because it was like, well, if what I'm saying is going to affect somebody else in a negative way, then I won't say it. If what I'm saying is going to make somebody feel uncomfortable, then I won't say it. If what I'm saying is going to rock the boat a little bit, then I won't say it. But then I learned that, especially this past year, that people will do whatever is the most convenient thing for them, and they won't necessarily filter it through the lens of how it's going to affect you. So if you walk in the world taking up less space, saying less about what you need, not confronting the issue to stand up for yourself, then what you're actually saying is, I'm willing to let the world happen to me instead of forging a path in this world that matches who I am. And so take up space, be loud. If you laugh loud, you laugh loud. I was in a restaurant 2 days ago and something funny was said and I burst out laughing. I had tears running down my face and I had to use a napkin to cover the tears or to wipe up the tears. And I didn't feel one tinge of insecurity or weakness in that moment, where in other paths of my life and other parts of my life, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I'm laughing too loud. People are looking at me. They're going to say something, whatever. Didn't do that, not one time, because I deserve to be there just as much as everyone else in the room. And if something was funny to me, I deserve to be able to express that joy in whatever way it comes out for me. The second thing, and this is something that I'm still working on. So, we're all still a work in progress, but eat the stuffed French toast. Fuel your body, but do not live in a food prison. And I say that because on my birthday, I went to this breakfast spot, and my natural inclination was to order the omelet because it had more protein. And though that's the way I like to fuel my body on a regular, everyday basis, more protein, not as much carbs, and I know that affects my body in a positive way. But when I saw that summer berry stuffed French toast, I was like, you actually want that. You don't really want the omelet. And it's your birthday. Not that I needed an excuse to order the thing that I wanted, but one weekend of stuffed French toast isn't going to derail my accountability for fitness and health and fueling my body in a positive way. It's also probably going to make my metabolism say, whoa, she's feeding us. So it's probably going to jumpstart that back into a good space as well. But life is too precious, short, and there's too many things to enjoy to put yourself inside of a food prison and say, I can't have that, or that food is off limits. I'm going to tell you that that's the first thing that popped into my head. I can't eat that. There's too many carbs in that. There's too much sugar in that. That's not going to fuel my body. That's not going to make me feel good. But also, I ate it. And then we went on a really long walk later in the day. And that made me feel not better about eating it because I wasn't walking to negate the calories that I'd eaten. But when I woke up, I was like, kind of feel, or when I took a nap and then when I woke up, I was kind of feel a little lethargic. Maybe we should go for a walk. So we went for a walk and we went for that walk and it was beautiful outside and there was vitamin D. And I didn't guilt myself for eating the French toast. But I'm going to tell you, that little girl guilted herself not only for eating the things, but for taking up more bodily space because the more space you took up with your body, the less it looked like you're able to control yourself. And that's just not who I was. Like, I wanted to make sure that I was shrinking my body at all times. And I'm going to tell you, every single bite of that stuffed French toast was fantastic. It was delicious. And I don't feel guilty for eating it. And I know that, it's not part of my normal eating habits to fuel my body, but it's not going to derail the whole thing because I had some stuffed French toast on my birthday. It was delicious and I'm not guilty. I don't feel guilty for eating it at all. So if you have yourself stuck in this food prison where you're constantly counting your macros and you're constantly, counting your calories and you're constantly, putting a number to the food you're eating and the amount of certain grams of certain or milligrams of certain things that you're putting in your body. Wouldn't say like there's anything wrong with you focusing on the food that you're eating. But I would say that if it feels like constraining and like you're denying yourself something and like you're on this constant wheel of imprisoning yourself and saying no to yourself and basically wanting something that you're telling yourself that you can't have, life is too short and too precious to not enjoy something, not enjoy the food, not enjoy the company in that space, not enjoy the drink or whatever it is. And so I would just say, like, moderate that because if I would have skipped that French toast, in fact, we went back to that restaurant today and I did get the protein and the omelet, which was good. But I would have been disappointed and I would have been thinking about that French toast for weeks to come because I really wanted it and it was satiating and then I moved on from it. And so don't let yourself be so consumed by what you're eating and how much space your body is taking up that you're constantly in your head playing those numbers over and over on what you can eat and what you can't eat and where you can go because the food is not going to, give you as much nutritious options. I know that there's a time and a space for that, but don't let it imprison your mind. The other thing is take the trip. Time is not promised and predictability is not guaranteed. I have this thing that I developed when I was a kid and I continue to do it for years, which was if the space is unpredictable, then it's not safe. And the only way that I can live in a space of safety is to control the space. And because of that, there was a lot of times where I wouldn't go somewhere unless it was completely mapped out and planned. I didn't want to, take the vacation with just me and my kids because it would just be me that was responsible for all the things. And, though I want to control everything, I don't want it to all be on my shoulders. And so I would not take the trip. I would be like, I would rather stay home. And perhaps maybe I would rather stay home sometimes because I am a bit of a homebody when it comes to that. But also, I'm noticing that the reason that that is the case is because I can control that space. And so to you, I say, if you're given the opportunity to take the trip, whether it be for your birthday, whether it be for just a regular Saturday in June, take the trip because you are not guaranteed predictability no matter where you are at your home, out at a new place, whatever. And so I would just encourage you to be spontaneous, be adventurous. If you can afford the trip, take the trip because those experiences and memories will last a lifetime. And you tell yourself that you can control the space by being a control freak and by being in spaces that you're comfortable with, but you truly don't control anything because nothing is really under your control. And so don't put yourself in that purgatory of not being able to, you know, be anywhere other than in that space that you know, when you could be experiencing new things and new spaces because you've come to the realization that you don't control anything. Um, this one is probably the biggest lesson that 41 gave me, which is trying to find your way without finding yourself will leave you walking in circles. So for years, I tried to find my person. I tried to find, my profession. I tried to find my stride in being a parent. I tried to find my, niche, whatever people call it these days. And you can't find any of that if you don't know yourself. And I think that we try to create this facade of who we are without actually sitting with ourselves, burying ourselves in those relationships that are toxic, burying ourselves in books, burying ourselves in podcasts, burying ourselves in, all of these things that can distract us from really delving into ourselves. And year 41 really showed me how to pause and ask, do you really like that? Is that really in alignment with you? Are you really the type of person who, whatever the thing is, fill in the blank with that? And gladly, the more I focused on finding me, the more the things that were for me found me too. And so I would just say that if you are in a space where you're looking for all of these things, maybe you're comparing yourself to people on social media and you want to go on all the trips and you want to do all the things that you can post about, but those trips aren't really serving you. They don't really make you feel alive or make you come alive. You're just going on the trip so you can post about them. Or you're thinking that you have to keep up with everybody on social media. So you have to look like them. You have to be a fashionista like them. You have to have, the momming structured like them. You have to have all of these things put together like them. Um, I would say you probably should walk away from your social media for a while so you can find who you really are, because it takes not having an influence from the external world in order for you to only be influenced by your internal self and by who God is telling you that you are and who you need to be. And it is then and only then, once you find you and you sit with you and you are submerged by your inner being, that is when the things that are for you will start to find you too. And when they do, it'll feel like you've known them your whole life, because the reality is you've known you your whole life and you've been suppressing that thing that's in there. But once it is out and it breaks free and it's given space to be, everything that it was meant to attract will be attracted to it. And you're going to walk in the world with those things and wonder why you waited so long to allow yourself to be, to allow those people in, to allow you to just exist. And I promise that you will experience more joy, even in conflict, because there's a certain joy inside of knowing that you're being who you were created to be, that lets conflict not mean as much to you. Like, father of your child doesn't like you, cool. You weren't meant to be appeasing to him. You were meant to be who you are. And once you structure yourself to be that way and to be committed fully to that, none of that other stuff matters. So I hope that for you. And then the last one is love doesn't hurt. It doesn't. And I would tell that little girl in that picture that I showed you guys that a million times. Love doesn't hurt. What your past showed you was the way that people were navigating their own inner child wounds, the way that people were existing in a space and calling it love. But love is celebrations, it's patience, it's holding space for you and your emotions and all of the pieces of you, flaws and all. And it's appreciation of that person, that imperfect person, that flawed person, that beautiful and amazing person. It is appreciation for that. And it's not just appreciation for it, but it's gratitude that that person gets to be in your space. So when you love someone or you love something or someone loves you, that's what you feel. You don't feel the hurt and the pain. So, year 41 just taught me to reimagine, even though I really don't love that word, but we're going to go with it. Reimagine and redefine that word love, because the little girl in the picture had defined it as something else. And for the last, 41 years, I've navigated life with that definition. But this past year, not just because of the people who've walked into my space, but genuinely because of how I started to see me and how I started to see the people in my life appreciating me and loving me. I remember writing in my journal once, I just wish that I could find someone who loved me for the things that I love about me. But then I had to actually uncover and unearth what those things were and then embody them. And once I did that, the love that I experience from the people around me is for exactly those things. And it doesn't hurt and it doesn't feel um, coerced and it doesn't feel manipulative and it doesn't feel like a struggle and it doesn't feel like a power trip. It just feels like the people who are in my space right now, friends, um, you know, my kids, everybody who I'm letting in my circle is being shown and guided how to love me correctly by me just embodying who I am and me treating myself with that same appreciation and respect. So, thank you for tuning in. And I just hope that when you do your self assessment, whether it be on your birthday or whether it be just on a random Wednesday, that you start to really unearth and uncover that there are some things that you're holding in your space from your childhood that deserve to be healed so that you can be set free. And I can tell you that freed version of me is just a whole different human being than the person that I was even last year. I walk different, I talk different, I'm calmer, I have just a different demeanor and a different outlook on life, and people notice it. I mean, they really are like, "You're glowing and you're experiencing joy," and that's so true because I'm counting it all joy now, counting it all as part of God's plan, and I'm being 100% content in the fact that wherever He has me is part of His perfect plan, and that I'm not the only one that's a piece of it, but that I'm a very important piece of it and that I'm a lovable piece of it and that he designed me for such a time as this. So I hope that for you. Thank you for everyone who celebrated my birthday with me, who posted on my page and all of that. I appreciate you guys. I love you. And I just would encourage you that if you're listening to this message and you know somebody that it will resonate with, hopefully it resonates with you. But if you know somebody who's in bondage and you know that it will resonate with them, I hope that you're able to share because wisdom kept to ourselves is selfish, but when you share it with other people, you're really giving them some sort of testimony to help them get out of the bondage that they're experiencing. And who wouldn't want to help someone free themselves from that bondage at an earlier time in life so that they can experience what true freedom is like? So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again next week.